Joining us, and we're going to start right now with the fire and the police department. We'll then take a little break and we'll have a chance, and the car doctor will arrive, and we'll wrap up with the car doctor. Meanwhile, I believe you have found our little bites buffet, and help yourself, and that will also be available during the exhibit time as well. As you all know, being prepared and being ready to expect the unexpected. How do you get ready? If I asked anyone if they could find the batteries or find their flashlights in the dark, would you be able to find them? If you found your flashlight and your batteries didn't work, could you find the batteries? There are so many things to think about and prepare, and this was just another opportunity to say how important it is. So I am absolutely thrilled to introduce, and we'll start off with the Assistant Fire Chief, Neil McPherson.
Julie, thank you for the invitation. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm glad that everyone here is thinking about preparedness, because as we know, we're about to enter that season. We're about to enter that season. We're about to have storms in the Northeast. So I applaud you for being here today, and I think that by taking some steps in advance, it can make a significant difference when in fact we do have storms. So the first thing I just want to talk about is a basic thing, but something that we consistently encounter in the fire service, and that is when you call us for service, if you don't have house numbers on your mailbox and the house, right, it can be a problem for us when we're looking for your house late at night. And many people say to us, well, but I have house numbers on the mailbox. Now, I don't know about you, but my mailbox has been knocked down over the past 10 years about 3 times in the winter when plows have hit it, or it's been buried by snow. So it's very important that you have your house numbers on the house and the mailbox itself. Right? The other thing that we've seen with the storms in the Northeast, one of the biggest issues becomes trees. I know that's hard to believe in Wayland that trees can be an issue for us. But it's really, really important that you don't wait for the storm to start thinking about your trees and having your trees evaluated. You should be thinking in the spring, in the summer, in the fall about going ahead and having someone look at your trees to see if there's dead or weakened trees that should be addressed before a storm. If you wait for the storm, of course, everybody is very busy, and you're going to pay a lot more to address your tree issues. So a little prevention here goes a long way and could potentially save you some money. When we talk about property maintenance, far too often we have storms, and people have flooded basements, or they go to use their generator, and the generator doesn't work. So again, the time to maintain and check on your sump pump to make sure it works is not in the middle of the storm. It's not when the weather forecaster says, guess what, we're in for a blizzard, and it will be here on Tuesday, because you and everybody else is now calling the plumber and other people to check on the generator, to check on the sump pump. And after the storm comes, when it doesn't work and your basement floods, we can certainly try to assist you, but that probably could have been avoided and or mitigated by having it serviced before the storm. When it comes to generators and shovels and sand and salt, I always find it interesting that whenever they forecast a storm, that there is this incredible rush to the supermarket or Home Depot. And my question is, we know we live in New England. In New England, we know we get what? Snow and ice. So there's a few things that we need, obviously, to deal with snow and ice. And basic things like shovels, having enough shovels, all right? Sand and salt, because we always end up with a lot of ice on the walkways, all right? Fuel for our generators. I always keep extra gas for my chainsaws when it comes to the winter. And you can actually buy canned gas that does not go bad and does not have ethanol, which is what I use in my chainsaws. Not that you should be using chainsaws, but if you do have appliances or equipment that runs on fuel, that's very important. What about the supplies? So for flashlights, it's really important. Make sure you go ahead and you have flashlights in advance. When it comes to candles, we strongly recommend you do not use candles that have open flames. You can buy candles now that actually are battery operated that can be used in a house. I've seen many, many occasions where fires have been started because power has gone out and people have used candles and they leave the candles unattended. So instead of having to worry about candles being unattended, you can buy these small little candle-like objects that are battery powered. It eliminates certainly that risk. A big thing becomes phones. Obviously, we all depend upon our phone charge, or I should say our cell phones in this day and age. The problem is that your cell phone has limited battery life. So what can we do? Do you have a car charger? Right in the middle of a storm, if your battery's going dead, you can certainly go out to your car and use your car charger to charge your cell phone. Also, you can buy battery devices, which are backup devices, which you can plug your phone into and power your phone, all right, for very little money. So this is just some items that you can go ahead and purchase. Obviously, in some communities, they don't have municipal water. Wayland does have municipal water, but you're very lucky. Do you have enough water? Do you have enough food supplies saved up? I know I live in Sherborne and wells are an issue. So when we lose our power, guess what? We lose our wells, we lose our septic, we lose everything. So when I'm over there, I make sure that I store water and I put water in the tub so that I can flush toilets. Yes,
Is water a problem in Wayland if they lose power?
typically not. Yep, that's the good news. When it comes to prescriptions, all right, obviously if there's gonna be a big storm, prolonged storm, and you are running low on your prescriptions, you should go ahead and you should make sure that your prescriptions have been filled in advance. And the other thing I just suggest, if someone is starting to feel ill, or someone is sick, don't wait until the middle of the storm to call us to try and get you into Boston. It's highly advisable, if you're feeling ill, to immediately address that. Now, I'll make that comment in a general sense. In many cases, we go and we see people and they call us at 3 o'clock in the morning. And they call us and when we get out there, they say, well, yeah, I've been having chest pain since 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And my advice to you is if you're having chest pain, or if something is different, and you're feeling uncomfortable, you feel pain, then you should be calling us immediately. Do not wait. And when it comes to heart attacks, remember, the longer you wait, the more damage is done to your heart muscle. So it's very important. Do not hesitate, all right, if you're feeling ill. Yes, question?
One thing about the prescriptions, the drugstore will not fill it. You know, if you were down to 5 pills and a big storm came and, you know, you wouldn't be able to get to the drugstore, they won't fill it before, because the insurance company will only fill them once a month.
I'm sure if you still have half a month's supply, that they probably won't fill it. But I would
But
think
I'm
if you're
talking
down
about just
for
a few
couple
days' supply. They will not fill it.
Yes.
You repeat questions. We are recording this for Waycam,
You are,
so if you could
okay.
repeat the questions, that would be great.
Sure. Okay, the comment was that very simply, in some cases, you're unable to refill prescriptions if you still have a number of days
Before
left.
the
And
month
clearly, you know, I would make the phone call and see if you can, if there's an impending storm coming, especially a significant storm. Because as we know out here, when you do have the tree damage, and look at last year's storm, it took days to restore power and to get people back on the road.
Okay.
So the other item becomes that these are things you can do before the storm. What about during the storm? What are some of the things that you think about, some of the things that you do during the storm?
Stay home. No, really,
Yeah, that's a very important one. Instead of going on the road or trying to travel, stay in your house where it's safe instead of going on the road. Because also, the town's trying to maintain the roads, and the more cars out there, the more difficult it is certainly to maintain the roads. So that's a great one. What else should we be doing during the storm?
Keeping yourself busy, reading, or some other thing like that, puzzle.
Doing something in the house.
Sure. Yep. Does anyone here have generators? All right. Is it a built-in generator where it automatically switches? Great. Because what happens every year that you read about in the papers?
The generator doesn't work.
Or people go and they take their generators and they
put in
connect
the
them
house.
and they put them in the house. What happens when you put a generator in an enclosed structure?
Carbon monoxide.
Yep. And what happens with carbon dioxide?
Kills you.
It can kill you. It's odorless, it is colorless, there's no way to detect it when you're exposed. So one of the things that we recommend, and is now state law, is to make sure that you have carbon monoxide detectors in your house, but you never operate generators within a house. And I believe last winter there was multiple people killed as a result of running a generator within a house. So that's certainly something, if you're gonna use a generator, make sure you use it properly and use it far enough away from your house. Yes, a question over here.
I would stretch that a little further. The farther you can get it away from the house, the better. Because if you have a steady wind coming over the generator, it'll get into the house.
I was gonna share a story that I had last year, and I had my generator about 10 feet from my house. And I thought that that was adequate, and I went to sleep, and all of a sudden my carbon monoxide detectors went off. And I realized because the wind was so strong, and it was right in front of my garage door, I should say it was 10 feet away, it was blowing carbon monoxide back into my house. So that's a very, very good point. You need to be aware of where the openings are, what is the wind direction, and make sure it's far enough away. So that's a great, great point.
Check the vent to your furnace that's not covered with piled up snow.
Yeah, absolutely, that's a great point. So vent pipes, where you have a furnace that vents outside, there's pipes, and if they get clogged, And what can happen is some of the poisonous gases or off gases from combustion can be forced back into the house. It also goes back to cleaning your chimney, right, before the winter season hits. If you use your fireplace or your chimney, right, for heating purposes, which most people do, you should have them cleaned and maintained every few years. Again, something preventative that you can do. Now, one of the big issues we encounter is after the storm hits. What do we do after the storm hits?
Stay in the house.
Stay in the house. Can I say one word here? My first thing would be patient, all right? We saw last year after all the storms, a lot of people had trees down, there was a lot of roads that were blocked. Eversource was out here, and there was a lot of people who kept calling and saying, when is my power coming back on? When is this road gonna be open? And they called the fire station, they called the communication center, and the answer is, we don't always know, right? They have a prioritized system where they will go ahead and they restore power. The first thing they do is they want to make sure everybody's safe. If there's live power lines down on the ground, they will go ahead and they will turn off that power, right? When it comes back to the restoration part, they have a priority system. So if you live in a street and there's 5 houses that have lost power, and most of Framingham is without power, you are going to be lower on that priority list. Critical infrastructure is high on that list too. So some people get very anxious, and I understand, me too. I lose power at least twice a year at where I live, and I want it back as quickly as possible, but understand there is a process and there is a prioritization review that Eversource does relative to the restoration of power. Also, when we talk about power lines, never go near a power line, because what happens with the power lines is, initially, in some cases, they'll still be live on the ground, but in other cases, what happens is, after they drop on the ground, the circuit breaker may trip. But what they'll do is they will send another pulse through at a later point in time to see if that was a squirrel or a branch or something on the wire. So if you think it's dead, you really don't know, and it can create a hazard for you. Same thing for trees. If there's trees that are caught up or on the house, you need to make sure that you're very careful before you go out there. Stay away from down trees and branches. And people say, well, why would you say that? It's such basic common sense. Unfortunately, our experiences when we're out there and we're dealing with some of these emergencies, we have people virtually remove the caution tape and walk underneath the caution tape right by the trees and the wires. So it may be common sense, but I think people don't realize it applies to them too. So, a question up here.
Remind us of the patients we had in '78.
I remember, I got a week and 2 days off from school. No sewer, no water for all that time with 4 kids. So that was a lot of fun, you're right. That's exactly right. It can happen, and in New England, we just don't know. So those are just a couple tips. Let me see, Eversource town resources. People ask about town resources. So in the event that you have water in your basement, you certainly can call the fire department. We'll try to help you if you have more, we'll say 6 inches of water, or we'll say 2 or more inches of water. If you have 1 inch of water in your basement, we probably can't help you because our pumps don't go that low. Some people call us and say, hey, can you bring us out a generator after a storm? And the reality is, unfortunately, probably not. We have just a couple spare generators, and in most cases, we don't have the ability to give them to residents. In some cases, people call and say, listen, I'm running out of oxygen, right? And we try to help wherever we can, but unfortunately, we cannot always do that. It goes back to the preparation, which is so important. If we know we're going to have a prolonged storm, let's go ahead and make sure that you have enough oxygen, right, in those situations. So there is some things that we can do for you after the storm, but again, it's most important safety and also access. If you're able, whether you do it yourself or you have somebody else, help to maintain access for emergency responders is important to us. If you have 2 feet of snow on your driveway and your driveway is 1,000 feet long, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for us to get there, and if in fact someone needs to be transported, to transport you to the hospital, we'll delay the care that we can give you. So we're trying to look out for your interest. I just want to check on the time. So just a couple other things, and then I will turn it over to the police chief. So as you guys know, we offer CPR classes on a pretty regular basis. We have a class that we'll be doing for the COA in November. So we encourage you to come. It is a friends and family class, which is the most basic level. It will last for probably about an hour and a half, and it can be any age level. And we strongly encourage you to come because we think everybody should know how to do CPR. We have Knox boxes or lock boxes in the back. I think you have heard us talk in the past about lock boxes, which can be placed on your houses for us to access your house if you're not there, or if you're injured and you can't come to the door. And the last thing that we frequently hear questions about is smoke detectors. So many people may or may not know that the rules have changed and the laws have changed relative to smoke detectors. You used to hear, change your battery every year. Well, what's the problem with that with the new smoke detectors that we have?
The 10-year ones.
They have a 10-year battery. So guess what? Kind of hard to change the battery every year when you have a 10-year battery and they're sealed in place. So nowadays, the smoke detectors are supposed to have a 10-year sealed battery. They're supposed to have a hush feature. So for example, if you're cooking and they go off, you can push the button. Instead of taking them down, you push the button and that will hush and silence it for the time being. And they should be photoelectric. If you ever have questions about smoke detectors or CO detectors, all right, you can certainly call us. And remember, CO detectors should be placed within 10 feet of every bedroom door on every level of the house that has habitable space. Yes?
Even the older smoke detectors had a life expectancy on, so you put the battery in and it doesn't stop chirping. It may be, you look at the date on it, if it's out of date, you gotta replace it, not.
That's correct. That's correct. And the new ones, the great news is after 10 years, take them and you throw them away. You can't put the batteries in.
You have to recycle them, you can just throw them in the trash.
I think you can just throw them in the trash. So that is, I think, all the time. Is there any other questions that you have for me, other than the police chief?
I have a question. You said that the smoke detectors should be photoelectric. I know there was another kind, but they should be photoelectric ones?
Right.
Okay.
For the most part, they should be photoelectric. I have some samples in the back. There is also ionization, smoke detectors,
Yeah.
but they've moved away from ionization.
Oh.
Photoelectric have better detection. So yes, Chief Swanek, I'm sorry.
My question is like, when your smoke detector goes and it starts chirping,
Yes.
why does it always happen at 2 in the morning?
I think they designed them that way. So thank you for your attention.
Wayland Public Safety is well represented today. And so we introduce Police Chief Pat Swanek. Thank you so much.
Hi, thank you. I always feel funny talking into a microphone. Kind of scares me to hear my voice projected back at me. But having that said, I'm going to be relatively brief today. We're going to talk about three different things. One is the reverse 911 system. The second is emergency management, and two is scams that affect, mostly the elderly and the people that are here today. Is everyone aware that we have a reverse 911 system in town in Wayland? Has everybody gotten the call, and has everybody signed up, and is everyone a member? Yes, is anybody not signed up? No?
How do you sign up?
Well, we'll go through that. I can either sign you up after it, or I can walk you through it. But what we have an emergency notification system, and we call it, the company name is called Swift 911. Some towns use another product which is called Code Red or Reverse 911. We refer to it as a Reverse 911 system because that's the original system that we had probably dating back 10 plus years ago. And what it is, if there's an emergency in town or a situation where we need a public safety emergency, where we need to notify everyone in town, or we can notify just a neighborhood or a certain area, that we can use voice recording, computer technology, and we can make like a robocall and get information out to call hundreds of people in minutes. We've used this for gas leaks. We've used this to warn people about snow emergencies, impending hurricanes. When we had the flooding back in 2010, when half the town was closed down, we could give updates through the reverse 911 system. We've also used it, for animals. A couple of years ago, we had a bear that was going through different neighborhoods and attacking bird feeders and moving lawn furniture. So we could give out information to these neighborhoods saying, look, a bear was sighted in this neighborhood. We give out safety tips. If you see if you see a bear, what to do and what not to do, and how you can, make your house less of an attractive nuisance or less attractive for the bear to want to come. I'm sorry?
How do we register?
How do you register? If you go on the Town of Wayland website, and then it'll say, town departments, you'll see police. So you click on police, and then on the left-hand side, there's something that says helpful links. So just remember, helpful links, police. We're here to help. And if you click on the helpful links, it'll say Swift 911 registration. And if you go onto there, you create an account, you can put in a name and a password, and you can register as many phone numbers as you want. So you could have your home phone, you could have your cell phone. If you have family members and you want, family members, children that may not live in Wayland, but you want them to know if there's ever an emergency in the town that you live in, you can sign them up so they'll get the notifications as well. And most of the time, when we give out the emergency notifications, we'll give them out during the daytime or early evening hours. So it's not likely that you're going to get an emergency 911 call at 2:00 in the morning, unless it was, say, a tornado or a tsunami where it was imminent danger. But most of the time, it's public safety notification. One of my roles in the town is I'm the emergency management director, and what that means is that I coordinate with our public safety partners, which is the fire department, the DPW, the Board of Health, all the towns work together to keep the residents safe during an emergency. And as Neil had kind of pointed out, most of the situations that we have to deal with that are emergency are storm or weather related. And 90% of our job is communication, and it's to communicate with the other partners in public safety, but also to communicate and share information with the residents that live in town. Where do you get your news? If there is a hurricane or a storm or impending, where are you generally going to get your news? Is
WBC.
Right, I think it's kind of the standard. It's going to be TV, WBZ, the radio. My parents, that's what I think my dad's car always had WBZ, tuned in. His first 4 cars only had an AM radio. But yeah, most people listen to the radio. Does anyone look to the town website for information? Because one of the things that we've all the town has worked on is to try to improve communication through the town website. But a lot of people don't go there. It's not the first choice or second choice. How many people use Facebook for news? That's one of the areas where the police department, the fire department, Wayland DPW, that we have started to share and put information on Facebook. We've actually been doing it for probably 7 or 8 years now. And we've actually had that. It's been a very useful tool for us to get information out, to let people know what's happening, what's coming. And it's been helpful for us because people can visit it when they want to see something, and you can use different forms of media. You can have video clips, you can put on informational, pamphlets, PDF flyers, you can just have notices, or you can just see what we're up to. But a lot of, what we do during an emergency and situation is communication and trying to update people. Like I said, if it's something that's an important update, we'll use the 911. In Wayland, we try very hard not to overuse the 911 system, because I know in some towns, they would have everything from, hazardous waste collection days to, the trash pickup got switched to another day, and then it gets to the point where people don't listen to it because it gets to be too much. As soon as they hear something that sounds like a recorded voice, or they recognize the caller ID, Town of Wayland, they just hang up. So we try not to use it. And again, speaking of public safety, emergency response, emergency management, one of the questions that we get a lot is, when do we open a shelter? When do you open a shelter in Wayland? And a lot of people, especially the older, the older population, the trend is, to be honest, to open a shelter takes a tremendous amount of work, because to open a shelter and open it properly, there's a lot of coordination. Our shelter location is at the Wayland Middle School. And usually the shelter gets opened if people are displaced from their homes, and that's usually a lot of people have lost their home. And a lot of times you'll see, across the country, if there's a mudslide, there's a fire, you have or flooding where people have lost their home, they have no place to go. Ideally, that's when you open a shelter. But what we tend to do here in Wayland, in New England, is we'll open up like warming and cooling stations. So, say we have a power outage that lasts several days, and people are without power. They don't have heat to heat their home. They don't have the first thing they should do is you go to friends and relatives. But if they don't have friends and relatives, then maybe they can go to a neighbor. They may go to a neighbor who has a generator. But if they don't have a neighbor who has a generator, a lot of times we'll open up what they call warming and cooling stations in town. And we use the public safety building. We have a training room, which is a room probably about this size. And it's always gonna be climate controlled, so it's always gonna be heat or air conditioned. Pauline?
The problem with that, Chief Swan, is that you have to have transportation to get there. So if you have a big snowstorm and you're without electricity, you know, how can you drive a car to get to the police station to have some warmth?
No, that's a good point. But you do have to admit, our DPW is usually very good about getting the roads cleared. But if it's an emergency and you're worried that you're gonna freeze to death, if you call us, we will either, dispatch our cruiser, or we'll contact someone on the Council on Aging, and, we would arrange transportation to get you
Well,
someplace safe.
thank you, that's very comforting.
And you can call me directly.
Uh-oh, you're in trouble.
A little bit on that, what Pauline asked. We've always made a habit, when it's gonna snow, put the cars at the end of the driveway. Because the DPW does plow the streets usually, but, if it's down at the far end of the driveway, you can't get it out, but you can usually, plow through the.
Okay, yeah, so you're saying you park your car at the end of the driveway?
Yeah.
So that you can get it out quicker?
Yeah,
That's an option. I tend to try to keep mine in the garage if I can, but my car always ends up being outside, and my wife's car is always in the garage. But the other thing too is you don't want it to get buried under the snow. If there's a lot of snow, it can also get buried in the snowbank. But, it's good, you're planning ahead, and I think that's a lot of what we're doing here, planning day is to, they say, failure to plan is a plan to fail, and it's good that you think ahead on how can you get out quickly in an emergency. So we were talking about shelters, and that's what we tend to do a lot is we'll open a cooling or a warming station, and it's a place where you can come, you can get warmed up. Sometimes we'll throw coffee and tea out. We'll have a charging station, or we'll have electrical outlets so that you can charge phones. But sometimes people they don't want to come to see us, and that's fine. And even if say you do get a long heat spell or a deep cold spell. Other options are, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a mall. Most people, some people I say, look, I understand the power's only going to be out for, they say it's going to be 2 days. I can handle that, but I just need my phone charged. And some people just don't think. They think, well, I can't plug it into the wall because that's what I always do. And so you throw the question back, well, do you have a phone charger in your car? And I was like, yeah, I just, I didn't think of that. And sometimes, like during an emergency, we don't think things through. And don't hesitate to call us because we'd love to help solve problems. And the last bit that I was going to talk about is that we're going to talk about scams that affect not only the elderly but everyone. And today it just seems like everyone is trying to steal money or trying to get money that doesn't belong to them. Whether it's setting up fake GoFundMe pages, IRS scams. 2 years ago, I think we had at least 150 calls where people had gone to file the taxes, when they went to file the taxes, they were notified by the IRS that someone had filed taxes using their Social Security number. They've made huge improvements. Last year, it was down to, I would say, a handful. But one of the things that we noticed that is non-ending are the telephone calls. People calling your home phone number with some sort of a scam, saying the IRS, their Secret Service, there's some federal government agency, and you owe them money, and if you don't want a marshal or an agent to come to the house and place you under arrest, you have to pay them. So anyone that tells you that you have to go to wire money through Western Union, Bitcoin, we had someone in town, they were told that you had to mail five $250 Home Depot gift cards.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, it's funny, you tell the story and people say, react in disbelief that you can't, but people under pressure, they're so caught up with the idea of thinking that they might be placed under arrest that somebody actually mailed $1,000 worth of Home Depot gift cards to some address. So, anyways, we had these cards made up to warn you of scams, and another scam is, they will call up and say, we've got your grandson, granddaughter. They've been, taken into custody by the police in Mexico. Look at if you can wire $2,000, he'll be, son, granddaughter will be able to get home safe. Again, people, focus on, oh my goodness, I don't want my grandchild to be harmed. They don't think to pause a second and call home, or to call their son or daughter to find out where the grandchild is. And we work with the banks, the people at, different convenience stores that have places that wire, work on money transfers. And they will call us and notify us. And again, I have these cards here, we'll leave them, for people to pick up. And it just talks about some of the different scams that are out there, and some of the things that people are doing. And if in doubt, never, ever, ever hesitate to call us. I mean, we're here to help you. A lot of times, we set up a Coffee with Cops event earlier this month. And one of the things that we find out when we talk to seniors is that the seniors, they don't want to call us because they sit home and they watch the evening news, and they'll look across the country and they just show the worst of what happens across the country and across the world. And they think that every police officer in the country is getting, shot at, beat up, and everything else. We are very fortunate in Wayland. We have a great community. People look out for each other, and the people look out for us, and we feel appreciated. And the thing is, we want you to call us. We don't care how small the problem is. That is why we're here. Like I said, people feel that they don't want to bother us with a small problem, but it's like that's why we're here. And in closing, it's just don't hesitate to call. You've worked hard, you've paid taxes, you're still paying your taxes, we're here to help you. Yep.
We have caller ID, and if we don't recognize the number that's there as somebody we know, we don't answer the phone. And if anybody that doesn't have caller ID, I recommend you get it, because they can say anything on there. I've got, in the last 2 months, I've gotten 2 calls at 8:30 at night. One of them was from the town of Stowe, and one was from the town of Wayland. And I know nobody called from either one of those towns at 8:30 at night.
Okay, I will add to that. His comment was about caller ID and how caller ID can prevent, if you have caller ID, don't answer unknown numbers. One of the things these people, the criminals, the bad guys, or whatever we want to call them, have gotten very savvy with computers. So they can make a phone call and they can project the caller ID to show your brother's phone number. We have had that done. People have called residents in town with some sort of a scam, and the number that shows up on their caller ID is the Wayland Police, phone number.
Oh, also, Chief Swan, on the computer, I bought a Norton Security to renew it for a year,
Yep.
And I got on the computer and this thing flashed up that I couldn't do it and all that. I should call this phone number. So I was a bit tired and I called the phone number. Well, it was just terrible. It was a scam, how they could get in there and know that I had bought this thing that, through the computer. They were able to tell I was trying to renew my security. So I ended up going to the bank and I changed everything down there, and all that. But it's just a racket. It's a big scam. And they're out to get you.
It's true.
Yeah.
Through the computer,
Yeah.
people can project and be anyone that they want to be, and it's really hard to find out. It's really because they can make their notices look so real that you would think that you're dealing with Norton Security, or it could be a bank.
Well, I ended up calling Norton because I was thinking about it. And I called them, and they told me they only renew their things for 1 year, see? Where this scam thing there, it was like $100 for, let's say it was $300 for 5 years, and then it went back. So it was a bargain if you renewed it for 5 years, $299. And I said to him, well, I don't do anything over $100 unless I discuss it with my son, which isn't totally true, but.
Okay. Julie's got the hook. Big Ben has come.
I've earned my name.
One thing I just wanted to say is never send by email your social security number or your date of birth on
Right.
any document.
That is a great point. Never send by email, social security number, or your date of birth.
You can fax, but not email.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief, so much. I have to tell you, I had a phone call at my home, and as you probably know, I live in Wayland, and my caller ID said it was from the town building. Now, I'm trying to figure out why the town building isn't calling me on my cell phone, because they know that number. And absolutely, had nothing to do with the town building. But it is amazing how we can easily fall victim. So, thank you so much to Wayland Public Safety, to Fire, to Police, to Chief Swanek, to Assistant Fire Chief Neil McPherson. We're going to take a small break. We have more things that have been added to our exhibits. The mini bites buffet is open, and the car doctor is going to set up, and he is here from AAA.
We covered some of the big scams, but there's little scams there too. I had one last year at my son's house. Woman knocked at the door and she said, I wonder if you could help me. I'm from out of town and I ran out of gas and I'm down at the gas station, but they won't give me the gas because I don't have any money. I need $25 to get gas for my car. And I said, later, honey. And she went to the next door.
One needs to be ever so careful.